favourite part of the programme. It's when we delve inside. Well, that too. It's not quite the end. It's when we delve into the papers, look at what's making the print papers. We're going through those with Liberal Democrat Minister, Liberal Democrat Minister Norma Mager and former Conservative advisor and current councillor Claire Pearce. I'll put my teeth in. And we will start with you, Norman. You want to talk about the front of the FT this morning. Billions in tax uncollectors as officers shift to Brexit and COVID loan fraud.
Yes, this is a Lib Dem revelation come out here, and what they've discovered is that because of new loopholes opening up because of COVID and because of Brexit, the firefighting teams in the tax arrangements have been sent over to deal with those loopholes, and then they've neglected what they would normally do. So billions going uncollected. But you know, when the public finances in a poor state and we're all being asked to pay more and everything else, it's a bit rough to see billions uncollected, I guess.
Yeah, but is that because the system is so complicated?
It's very complicated.
Yeah.
The more complicated the system is, the more loopholes will arise.
Yeah. The thing is, though, no one has any sympathy for anybody who the revenue goes after, I suppose. But they're not always right, Norman, and they have this seem to be boundless power to challenge anyone they want. I mean, you'll see lots of people talking about the stresses and strains when they thought they were doing the right thing, or when they were
taking advice,
taking their own lives. People doing this as well.
I think what I don't like is they're very hard on small people and small businesses. But if you're a rich person owing a lot, you'll come to a deal with them and pay it off, and nothing else will happen.
And when you're saying owing a lot, you're talking about millions. Yeah, and that's what we're talking about.
Should we talk about Rwanda, Claire? Because it's really interesting to see now the decision that went in the government's favour on all of this can now be appealed, and it's in the Express today.
That's right. There was an appeal put forward at the High Court, and it has now been allowed that charities and individual claimants can take this to the Court of Appeal to have a look at the policy again. I think this is now pushing it further along into the long grass, which a lot of us said at the time that this particular policy wasn't going to work. I just think it's interesting that the courts have decided that this challenge against their own decision can be taken. And you can see that it's going to go to the Court of Appeal. I should imagine it will end up in the Supreme Court. And if there is no election and government's change, then it will end up in probably the European Court. So it really is a doomed policy, and the government is so wedded to it.
Doomed policy.
Doomed.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Norman was saying earlier on there are two types of Home Secretary, an authoritarian or a libertarian Home Secretary, and Claire's saying this is a policy that is authoritarian and is doomed.
Yes, I mean, whatever you think about the problems in the Channel, this doesn't work. It doesn't work for a number of reasons, not least of all, there's a small limit in the number of people Rwanda was prepared to take. I think it's 200 or something really quite small. So, I mean, under those circumstances, this is no sort of solution at all.
Well, you can't say it doesn't work, because we haven't tried it yet.
Well, it's not working so far, is it?
It's not working yet.
Yeah, but also, I think, again, something that would, that seems to have public support, as it were.
There's public support for trying to deal with people coming across the Channel. And the reason people are coming across the Channel, by the way, is because we've been successful in shutting down people getting onto trains through Eurostar and getting into lorries through Dover. That's why they've all migrated to the Channel. So if you look at the numbers going across the Channel, of course it's gone up, but you have to look at that in conjunction with the numbers that have gone down at Dover and other ports.
I'm assuming that a lot of the legal challenge to this will be about Rwanda and the rights and the humanitarian issues there.
Yes.
And we heard so much, haven't we, about Suella Braverman saying it was her dream to see one of these flights take off. But not so long ago, they'd started investigating other countries with better human rights records. I think it was Patagonia off the top of my head, or Ecuador, or something like that. South American countries.
It was South American.
So could they focus on those instead?
Absolutely, and they should. I mean, I think the problem is...
So it could work if it was a different country. The policy could work.
Absolutely could. But at the moment, the government is saying that this is going to be used as a deterrent. OK, well, it's not really being much of a deterrent currently. I just wonder if they'd actually sat and thought about it and not put this policy out on the hoof, which they did last year, to great aplomb before a set of local elections without thinking it through. And this is the one thing that always worries me with policy. You don't think it through, you put it out there, it is then either amended or it is challenged in the courts, and it never happens. And it makes the government look weak if they are ever going to suggest another scheme which could work and could have the desired effect. Everyone is going to look at it and say, well, you didn't do very well on that one, why should we believe you? Trust in politics then is lost.
Would you object to it if it went to a country with a better human rights record? Could it work as a deterrent in that?
I think we should take responsibility for people who arrive in this country without trying to offload them onto some other country, actually.
Okay. Norman, you've written a book or two in your time. Boris Johnson, this is in the Mirror, and
Yes.
you're saying on page 11.
They sold quite well, my books, but I didn't get the sort of advance that Boris was
£6
getting.
million quid, I read.
£6 million. But also, David Cameron got, I think, was at £1.5 million for a memoir no one's read, and Tony Blair
I've
got.
got a copy of it.
Tony Blair got. Have you read it?
I didn't finish it.
It's too boring. And Tony Blair got 800,000, I think it was, for his memoirs. I mean,
That's inflation, isn't it?
Well, it is inflation, but the thing is that how many books do you have to sell to pay back that advance? But with due respect to Boris Johnson, he's not Prince Harry. He's never going to sell that number of books. The publisher will never get that money back.
What do you think they should call his book? Because there's lots of jokes doing the round yesterday, because as yet untitled, but sort of suggestions about hasta la vista, baby, or
I was going to say sort of ambushed by writing. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a journalist in that respect, but it does feel a little bit like Prince Harry's put his book out and Boris Johnson has turned around and said, "Hold my beer, here comes mine." You can see that kind of play in the press. People will read it. People will buy it.
they will.
I'm not sure that we can take any more of him, really.
Well, quite so. And I think when it does come out, it needs to be in the fiction section.
Norman, a quick word, story in the Star. This is page 2 in the Star. They used to call them in Coronation Street a mural. It's a mural of the King.
Well, I was going to say the King, but I was going to actually show you, if your readers can see this, if they can or not, who is this man? Because this doesn't look anything like King Charles to my mind. It looks like some sort of Wallace and Gromit character. How can that be?
Have we got a picture of this, have we?
King
Got a picture of it?
Charles. There we
you
go.
are. That is not King. I'm sorry, that's not King Charles.
Well, it's a bit of a sort of ruddy-faced sort of caricature of him, but
It's a pier on the street in Northampton.
it's an act of love, or is it not? Maybe.
I think it's a council-inspired. I saw it in its full glory. It's quite a big mural.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but the thing is, the council's paid for it, right? And they paid 70 quid on this, and apparently the council's skint.
Yeah, the council went bankrupt. They were taken to special measures.
Yeah.
And his eyes are filled with tears. I wonder if that's after his sons have been fighting.
No, it's because he's got a preview of what that looked like. Claire, we're going to go to a story now of animal cruelty, horrendous perversion of someone who's shooting cats. You have a couple of cats. You've got Shadow and Tango.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, they're very, very much loved. See, there's
Oh, I see what you did there.
Tango.
Tango
cat.
being sort of orange, yeah.
Yeah, the orange cat, and sitting on the table.
Is Shadow
where
gonna
he's
be
not
black?
supposed to be. And Shadow, yes, surprisingly, he is black.
Oh, look. Oh,
And he's
one
just got
eye.
one. He has.
Oh,
He lost his eye about 18 months ago, but he is the kindest, sweetest part of our
Love
family.
cats.
And I think that's
Yeah.
what is so
horrible.
awful about these crimes, is that those are very much loved parts of my family, both my husband and my son, and to have anybody think of doing something like shooting a pet,
Well,
any pet,
This is
appalling.
in Haywards Heath.